A few months ago, I introduced you to a brand new concept in table saw sleds. One that lets you make regular and dado cuts on the same sled with perfect zero clearance and no tear up. Using swappable 3D printed inserts you can make yourself. But today, I'm taking it several steps further. Mathematically perfect picture frames. Mitered box corners like a pro. Splines like your dad used to make. The creamiest box joints you've ever seen, and more, all on the same sled using swappable jigs you print at home. I've turned the traditional table saw sled into a multi-tool jig platform, and I'll show you how you can do it too. You ready? Let's do this. Hey everybody, hola amigos, Lee here from Busted Knuckle Woodworks. Sometime last year, I got these awesome Bamboo Lab 3D printers, the H2D and the P2S. And they inspired me to create a table saw sled that could last forever by making the kerf, that's the part you cut through, totally replaceable. After all, the kerf is what gets all chewed up and worn out, so why not treat it as a sacrificial part? And then it occurred to me that this would let me make dado cuts on the same sled. And life was good. But the mind of an inventor never rests. And so I changed the name of this thing to the OmniSled, designed a mini version, went to work improving a bunch of things, and came up with a ton of new jigs. I realized that if you're just cutting round stock or making picture frames or box joints, you don't really need a big sled. So I designed the OmniSled Mini. The same functionality, fits the same inserts, just in a lighter, portable, easy to store package, perfect for smaller shops, smaller saws, or smaller projects. And there are plans for both this big boy and its little brother on my website. Link in description. This one was inspired by my grandfather, who taught me when cutting round stock, always use a V-block. Cutting anything round on a flat table is inherently dangerous, but the V-block makes it super easy and super safe. It lets you through cut round stock up to the full capacity of your table saw. And like every OmniSled jig I'm showing you today, it comes in a large format version suitable for printing on the Bamboo Lab H2D, H2S, H2C, and even the brand new A2L. And a small format version if you have something like the Bamboo Lab P2S, P1S, A1, X1C, or X2D. Want to see something really cool? Bamboo Lab software made it easy for me to add a feature inside all the OmniSled jigs, including this, that will be of special interest to woodworkers. Let me show you. Here we have a zero clearance insert loaded up in Bamboo Studio. And when folks first started printing these, there was a lot of discussion around sparse infill density, specifically what density to use to make them as durable as possible. You'll see I can change the infill density right here in the software, and some people crank this way up, even up to 100%, which of course makes it very strong, but also expensive and slow to print. The only part that really needs reinforcement is where the blade cuts through, and Bamboo Studio makes it really easy to set that up using what's called a modifier. So you see, I've added a modifier in the path of the blade wide enough to accommodate a full 3/4 inch dado. Here it is highlighted. And I can set this modifier only to print at 100% infill density while leaving everything else at 15%. That saves time and cost while still providing solid durability right where you need it. Now, if you get these files, you won't have to mess with any of this. The modifiers have already been set up for you on every jig. Next, let's talk about the OmniSled miter guides and what I mean by a mathematically perfect miter. Think about the way we usually cut miters for, say, a picture frame. We might use something like this, or whatever the heck this is. The problem is, these are all one-sided 45-degree devices with moving parts. And if you cut all your miters on just one side, and the angle is off even by a small fraction of a degree, your miters will always be off. The OmniSled miter guide is not a single-sided 45-degree jig. It's a two-sided 90-degree jig, 3D printed with mathematical precision, with no moving parts and no calibration required. And that's the secret. It's two-sided. What you want to do is to lay out your pieces and mark the adjoining ends alternating left and right. As long as you cut your adjoining pieces on alternate sides, these miters are mathematically guaranteed to be perfect. Because the sides are opposed by exactly 90 degrees, this corner will always be exactly 90 degrees. Even if the sled is slightly off or the blade is slightly off, as long as you alternate the cuts, any tiny error on one side would be automatically compensated by the other side. And of course, I could have stopped there. But nope. I made a 120-degree jig for 6-sided hexagons and a 135-degree jig for 8-sided octagons, because that's how I roll. And now I know I'll never, ever, ever have to deal with sloppy picture frames again. And neither will you. Won't that be nice? You might notice there's this gap here. That's what's called a floating cantilever, a part of your model that doesn't touch the build plate. Of course, no 3D printer can just print into thin air, so what's going on? Here we are again in Bamboo Studio, and we've got the miter guide loaded up. If you take a model like this and try to slice it as is, you'll see a little yellow warning box pop up. That's Bamboo Lab telling you, hey, you've got a floating cantilever. And sometimes you can reorient the model to get around that, but in this case we can't, so we need to create a structure that gives the printer something to print onto, and that's called a support. And again, you won't need to worry about this. I've already done this all for you, but if you're ever printing anything and this happens, Bamboo Lab makes it super easy to fix it. Just go to this tab where it says Supports and check this box that says Enable Support. And Bamboo Studio will figure out all the areas that support is needed and add them automatically. And it gives you a number of options here. The default is tree, which is good for curved parts. This cantilever is perfectly flat, so I'm going to choose normal. And here, I'm going to select snug. That will come off a bit cleaner and takes up a little less room on the build plate. When you slice the model, you'll then see the supports Bamboo Studio generated. Once the part is thoroughly cooled, the supports should easily snap off. So we've got frames covered. What about boxes? There's a solution for that too. The OmniSled corner jigs. And again, like the miter guide, this is a 90-degree two-sided jig. So you want to cut your adjoining pieces on opposite sides, just like we did with the frames. Take each piece, cut it on the left, then cut the other side of that piece on the right. Repeat that on each piece, and voila. No more sneaky tricks like setting your saw blade past 45 degrees or whatever these YouTuber kids are doing these days. Just mathematically mitered perfection. And like the miter guides, there's a 120-degree 6-sided and 135-degree 8-sided version because why not? And if you're making boxes, you gotta have a spline jig. A spline is a little piece you can glue into the corner of a box to give it extra strength. You can make them out of a contrasting wood for some added interest. And the OmniSled Spline Jigs make that very easy to do. This is the OmniSled 90-degree spline jig. Now, the key when cutting a spline notch is not to cut all the way through to the inside of the box, so there's a little gauge here on the end to help you. Just set the blade height according to the thickness of the walls of your box. There are steps for 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1 inch stock. This box has 3/4 inch walls, so I'll raise this dado blade to the 3/4 inch mark on the jig. And that will let us cut the spline notch to the perfect depth. And of course, it's available at 120 degrees and 135 degrees, blah, blah, blah. You know the drill. Now, I showed box joint jigs in the previous video, but I've improved them. First, the pin is shallower, which lets you work with stock as thin as 1/4 inch. It's also longer, letting you use a backer board. And finally, the pin has been repositioned ever so slightly to improve the fit. And the results? Like butter. Check that out. And of course, it's available for 1/2 inch, 3/8 inch, and 1/4 inch box joints because, as you've probably already figured out, the OmniSled is all about options. So you're thinking, Lee, this is all great, but I don't have a 3D printer. Well, even though we do plan on selling pre-printed versions of these, may I suggest you should get a 3D printer. I promise, once you do, you won't know how you lived without it. And I have affiliate links in the description that you should use because my yacht needs a new helipad. And those ain't cheap. I love my H2D. It's the workhorse of my shop. dual nozzle printing in their biggest size. And my P2S, fast single nozzle printing and very affordable. And these are especially great for woodworkers because they both hold up great in a shop environment and handle every filament Bamboo Lab offers, from PLA and PETG to PC and PPA. And if you don't know what any of that means, don't worry, because as I like to say, Bamboo Lab is like the Apple of 3D printers. Take it out of the box, set it up, turn it on, and it just works. I want to thank Bamboo Lab for their support and for sponsoring this video. I know what you're thinking. Lee, just tell us where we can get all this. The plans for the big sled, the mini sled, and 3D print files for the zero clearance inserts, the V-blocks, the miter guides in 90, 120, and 135 degrees, the corner jigs in 90, 120, and 135 degrees, the spline jigs in 90, 120, and 135 degrees, the box joints in 1/2 inch, 3/8 inch, and 1/4 inch, all available for small format or large format printers, all available for attachment with wood screws or cap screws, plus a bunch of extra jigs, are all available exclusively right now at BustedKnuckleWoodworks.com. And before you ask, yes, there are more jigs coming soon. Be sure to subscribe to see them all in action in an upcoming video. I've been doing a lot more over on Patreon lately. There's a discussion forum over there where you can share your thoughts on all of this. You can watch me showing prototypes of all the new stuff in progress and be the first to know when we start selling pre-printed versions. So come on over. It's free to join. That's it for me. Adios, amigos.